I've been asked to give a BBC quite impromptu, which I'm happy to do. And in the few minutes I had to think about this, I was remembering back to some former times here and different things that have happened over the years. And that brings a good chuckle. And so I'm talking a little bit about training today and training at the Abbey and the Abbey's culture, the Abbey's values, and how we choose to live together. And especially, I can remember some years ago, we had a group of people here who kind of got into this age thing, where the young people, for a little bit, it was like the young versus the old dynamic happening. And, you know, there's just different dynamics that come up over the years, over things that actually have no real purpose in our training. And just to preface this, I remember last time I came to visit, I was so aware of how much we all have in common. No matter what country we're from, what gender we are, what our sexual preference was before we ordained, whatever those things were. And I'm, quite aware that we have so much more in common, and anything that is a difference is like a tip of an iceberg, and the rest, the bulk of the iceberg is below the water, and that's what we have in common, no matter what that other stuff is. So I think it's important to kind of keep that in mind as we live together. Even, little things that irritate us, they really don't matter much. So one thing that when we formed the Abbey, we set some values, and one of them was to be gender equal. And we always hoped we had a lot of monks and nuns, and we have a lot of nuns and a few monks. It's just how it came. It's just what played out. So that's that. But it didn't change this concern that we have about how that works and how that looks. And so what I want to say in terms of training is we don't really train men or women differently here. That isn't our value. There are times when things come up for various specific reasons where we divide things, or we have certain people go and pick people up, or we adapt to other people's cultures that come here, various monastics that come here. Their countries are different, their cultures are different, and we adapt. So there are some times where this kind of moves a little bit, how we handle the gender issue. But in terms of our training, all of us are training with the same guidelines. All of us have the opportunity to try to set good examples. As a more senior person here, I often say about my current situation, don't follow my example. I've said that probably 15 times to people here. Any time anybody asks me about this, that's what I say. That's not, and there's other things when I'm here that I would say, don't follow my example. And as a senior, I think we need to sometimes be transparent in that way so we don't confuse younger members of the community. I don't mean age younger, I mean juniors in the community. So, but then those who are juniors, who are training, when you're going to look at someone for what to follow, you need to follow the person's good examples. There are people, everyone here in this community has certain really great qualities that we want to emulate. And around our training rules and guidelines, some people are really, they just flow with certain things, and other people are quite challenged by certain things. And it's kind of true for everyone here. So we need to follow the good example. And again, that's not divided by someone's age or someone's gender or any other specific. So, yeah, I think this might be quite short, because I actually think that's mostly what I want to say. Maybe someone else has some comments to add to this, but I think that maybe if any things are coming up now because we have a different mix of men versus women here, I just want to put that out there, that it doesn't really change anything. It's not like some years ago when we had this age divide that kind of wanted to manifest itself, and we we didn't really let that happen because it just got in the way. It wasn't contributing to the health of the community or to anyone's training. It was really not beneficial. And I think I would say that's somewhat the case here now.
So you said men versus women, but I would say it's not men versus women. You know, as you said, we have much more in common.
Right.
Than the other things. So we're all training our minds. We all have the same aspirations of the Buddha, to become Buddhas and to benefit sentient beings. So it doesn't matter if you're a man, if you're a woman.
Right,
you know,
and it doesn't matter your age, it doesn't matter all these things. They're somewhat immaterial to that notion. So
we have good examples among the men and good examples among the women, and not to say, oh, I'm of this, so I'm only following the example of that, of this one.
So in particular here, we just follow the good examples of whomever is senior or junior, actually. That's the training.
Just to emphasize that is that that the qualities are going to, there's nobody in this community, or as far as I can see, that has absolutely perfected the training and have perfected the good qualities. And so, it also helps that if we're willing to look at the good qualities, the whole community, individuals and collectively, then when someone makes a mistake or is afflicted, they're not up on a pedestal somewhere where there's all this disappointment and frustration and like, gosh, they're not doing what I think they should be doing because they've been here this long, they've done this training or whatever, is that to find that the qualities are sort of like a stream that navigates itself through the whole community, and to find them, and they're everywhere, but they're not just set in one place. And that's the flexibility to know, because everybody's at a different stage of learning and wisdom and maturity, but even the young ones have great qualities to us that inspire me.
Right.
And, so that's the way that I like to look at it.
And also in that regard, I would say that as a senior, and for us seniors, the training actually is to learn how to be skillfully transparent, so that when we can actually say if we think our behavior might be confusing someone, that this is not the example to follow. I mean, that I actually, just my own personal view about our abbess is that I think one reason why her ethical conduct stays pure is that she's been transparent as long as I've known her. Before, when I was thinking about coming here, she sat me down, and the one thing she said is, you're going to have to be transparent to live here. And over the years, watching this, you see things happen in different communities where ethical conduct falls apart for people. But it's hard for me to imagine that those people are willing to sit up here and teach and reveal their faults. And I think to me, that's been the big lesson, like, wow, this transparency is actually one of the geniuses of our abbess. I've thought this for 10 years now, watching what happens. So this is like the model for us to stay safe in our ethical conduct, not just to be like Geshe Helge in Spokane. Years ago, he said, at least when you're on your cushion, be honest to yourself. Maybe you can't say it to anyone else, but at least when you're on your cushion, be honest to yourself, right? And that's where it has to start, because if you can't be honest to yourself, you're lost. And then there comes in the training, you work through like your issues with pride, where pride feels like a burden. At first, to me, it's like you saw that and it makes you want to like shrink away. But later in my training, when I recognized pride, I was like, wow, this is like taking a weight off my shoulders. Instead of like this reaction of I want to go crawl in a hole, it was more like, I see this and I get to throw it off now and I feel released. So this comes, you don't start that way. This is part of the training. And this is the same thing with the transparency. When have to take the confessions from visiting monastics, shikshamanas or whatever, or anagarikas or whatever, my policy, I feel like I'm following Venerable's lead on this, is I let people say what they're comfortable saying, and I don't like push, like, here, let me scratch beneath the surface there and see what's really going on. No, they're not ready for that. You know, they don't even probably know it themselves. So, you know, there's like an organic process that happens with our internal growth that when we can respect that in another person and allow that to be, it will never be like a prison here. It will be like an understanding of like what His Holiness said when Anne Klein asked him in Stanford, like, why does it take so long to become enlightened? And he said to her, and she's quite a scholar, he said to her, well, it's like when you grow flowers, you have a seed, and it just takes so much time for germination and growth and everything to happen. And they put that in the paper, and all the intellectuals thought, they made fun of it in the newspaper, like, you know, and I was like, they don't get it. You know, they don't get it. Like, it's too much of a simple answer for that academic mind or something. But it was so true. And this is what we're talking about here. So we don't have to create prisons here. We have to learn how to grow ourselves and realize our impact on others so that we aren't, you know, so that we give them the opportunity to do the same.
First of all, thank you. It's lovely to hear your voice. But I just wanted to add, just on what you just said about the training here, part of what's so precious in that transparency, I think, although I do not have the capacity to gauge what level people are on, if I assume I know I am an ordinary being. Now, just coming to recognize that, like to own that, then my perfection about how I should look and what I should do and blah, 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 falls away. And when I can do that and own that I am just an ordinary being and I am here with a real mission, then I can see everybody else also as an ordinary being with skills and with faults. So I want to bring this up because so many of us get hung up on we're not good enough and should we be here and we have to aspire to this and whatever. Mm-hmm. But when we hold each other with this transparency, then we recognize we all have faults, we all have good qualities. We can cultivate seeing each other's good qualities and rejoice in those, and then hold each other in compassion for the faults that we see that we know everybody is working with. Mm-hmm. So that's like the cap on, I think, what you're talking about in terms of our transparency and our training that holds the community together. That's part of that unity. Yeah, we have recognized that for years. Like, we are a harmonious community. We always have been. It doesn't mean we don't have problems. We have problems every day. But one of the key elements that why we are harmonious is that we recognize in each other that everyone's trying. And, you know, exactly what you're saying there. We see that, and we see each other's growth. So, yeah.